Many people believe failure is a matter of luck, that the world is against them, or that certain dreams are simply not meant to be. They look for external reasons, for a cosmic injustice, or a lack of opportunity. But the truth is far more intimate, far more within our grasp. Failure doesn't just arrive on your doorstep, announced with a decree. It's born in the quiet moments, in the first thoughts that greet you as you emerge from sleep, in the very way you begin your day. Every morning, often without conscious intent, you are laying the foundation for your destiny. If that start is riddled with chaos, distractions, doubt, or a pervasive sense of disorder, you are not just repeating yesterday's mistakes. You are actively reinforcing the patterns that lead you back to them, again and again. The stark reality, as I've come to understand it, is that success isn't a singular, isolated event. It is the direct, undeniable consequence of the actions you choose to take, and crucially, the actions you choose not to take, at the very outset of your day. If you are weary of the cycle of failure, you don't need to wait for a miraculous intervention or a sudden change in external circumstances. What you truly need is to cultivate your morning. Because when you gain control over those initial decisions, those first deliberate moments, you are simultaneously taking command of your entire trajectory. And when you are the captain of your ship, success transforms from a distant fantasy into a tangible, daily strategy. Failure rarely announces itself with a fanfare. It doesn't typically arrive with a clear label, as if to say, "This is what has been holding you back." No, failure often creeps in through the smallest of cracks. It takes root in those first precious minutes after you wake up. It's there in the almost unconscious decision to hit the snooze button for just 5 more minutes. In the ingrained habit of reaching for your phone to check messages before you even consider your goals for the day. It begins with that silent, insidious thought, "Today won't be any different." It starts in that invisible skirmish, the one that the vast majority lose before they've even physically risen from their beds. Because what truly determines whether you will experience a productive, focused, and intentional day is not what you accomplish in the afternoon, but what you commit to in those initial 30 minutes after your eyes flutter open. If you start your day operating from a place of reaction, adrift in confusion, or succumbing to inertia, you are stepping into life at a distinct disadvantage. The world, after all, doesn't wait for you to find your focus. It rewards those who are already in motion when others are still struggling to awaken. And here lies a truth that many find difficult to acknowledge. Success is not built on a series of infrequent, momentous decisions. It is forged through the accumulation of countless micro-decisions, repeated consistently, day after day. How you rise, the internal dialogue you allow, the thoughts you permit to take hold, the priority you assign to your aspirations. These are the elements that either build you up or break you down. This isn't about adopting a 5 a.m. wake-up time simply because it's trendy, nor is it about blindly mimicking a routine you've seen online. It's about cultivating clarity about who you are, what you truly desire, and the unwavering commitment required to achieve it. And that profound clarity can only be ignited when you intentionally direct your mind in the morning, rather than allowing it to wander aimlessly. You cannot reasonably expect to achieve different outcomes if each morning begins as an improvisation, a chaotic launch without structure or purpose. Because it's not the clock that shapes your day, it's your intention. The morning is, in essence, the training ground for your character. It is the crucible where you decide whether today will simply be another day that passes or whether it will mark the true beginning of a new life. Every single time you open your eyes and allow yourself to be swept away by impulses, the urge to sleep longer, the desire to avoid any discomfort, the tendency to dwell on what you lack, you are reinforcing an identity that keeps you trapped precisely where you don't want to be. But when you make the conscious decision that your morning is sacred, that your first hour is non-negotiable, that this precious time belongs not to the demands of the world but to you, something fundamentally shifts. This change is palpable, it is noticeable, and crucially, it accumulates. A perfectly orchestrated morning doesn't guarantee a flawless day, but it undeniably prepares you to face it with greater strength, sharper clarity, and a profound sense of purpose. And when this preparation is sustained, day after day, it has the power to transform everything. Because life doesn't change when that one big, life-altering opportunity finally arrives. It changes when you stop squandering the smaller ones, especially the daily gift of a new morning. Every morning initiated with haste, with chaos, with distraction, is a morning that silently pulls you further away from your best self, often without you even realizing it. The subtle damage of a disordered morning doesn't trigger an immediate alarm. There's no audible warning when you decide to postpone what truly matters, no visible penalty for surrendering to autopilot. All that often follows is a faint sense of discouragement, a dip in energy, a persistent feeling of always reaching for something that remains perpetually out of reach. Over time, this pervasive feeling can solidify into an unshakable identity. You might start telling yourself, "I'm just not consistent," or "I always feel like something is missing," or "I'm just not like other people." But what you are truly lacking is not motivation. It is structure, it is focus, it is a resolute decision to cease surrendering your mornings to disarray. Because the individual who fails to master their beginning will inevitably be dragged along by the rest of their day. You don't fail because of what you do in the spotlight moments. You falter because of what you neglect to do when no one is watching. When you don't rise at the time you promised yourself, when you don't jot down what you aim to achieve, when you refrain from visualizing the person you aspire to become, when you fail to train your mind instead of feeding your grievances. Each morning presents a pristine page, ready to be filled. You can choose to fill it with habits that fortify your spirit and propel you forward, or with habits that gradually wear you down. And the most insidious danger lies not in having a disordered morning once, but in making it a daily occurrence and accepting it as normal. Because what you repeat without conscious awareness eventually becomes your destiny. If every dawn is lukewarm, scattered, and feeble, how can you possibly expect your life to be firm, clear, and strong? You must design your mornings with the same intentionality that you would design your future, because that is precisely what you are doing. The actions you take in that critical first hour after waking send a powerful message to your brain. I am here to conquer the day, or I am here merely to survive it. And your brain, invariably, responds in kind. If you commence your day with order, with deliberate intention, with a clear sense of direction, then every subsequent element begins to align. Your emotions become more stable, your decisions firmer, and your motivation ceases to be dependent on external triggers, blossoming instead from the very core of your identity. Conversely, if you start by reacting to incoming messages, to the endless scroll of social media, to lingering thoughts of scarcity, then chaos seizes your mind before you even have a chance to make a conscious choice, and another day slips through your fingers, lost and unfulfilled. So, commit to this simple yet profound action. Rise without bargaining with laziness. Drink a glass of water as your first act of respect for your physical being. Sit in silence, even if it's just for 5 minutes, and ask yourself, what do I need to do today for myself to feel proud by sunset? Not what the world needs, not what your job demands, not what your environment requires. Simply, what do you need? Then, jot down 3 things. One action that moves you closer to your most important goal, one attitude you are committed to sustaining throughout the day, and one specific negative thought you absolutely will not allow to take root today. This is structure. This is direction. And it takes no more than 15 minutes. Yet, those 15 minutes hold more value than an entire day lived without awareness, because it's not about accomplishing a monumental amount. It's about doing what truly matters, right at the beginning, where everything commences, where the decision is made whether your day will be merely another repetition or a silent, powerful declaration that this time, you are genuinely changing. To be truly blunt, many people delude themselves into believing they fail because they lack luck, because time is perpetually scarce, or because their moment simply hasn't arrived. But the truth is far more raw and infinitely simpler. They fail because they have not learned to be consistent when the initial wave of enthusiasm inevitably recedes. Anyone can muster a burst of motivation on a Monday morning, but very few possess the discipline to maintain momentum on a Thursday, when the body feels heavy, the mind is clouded with doubt, and the cacophony of the outside world aggressively demands immediate attention. And it is precisely here, in this critical juncture, that those who advance diverge from those who merely repeat their past. The distinction is not found in the intensity of their beginnings, but in the unwavering solidity of their continuation. No matter how many times you've tried, if you haven't managed to sustain action, regardless of whether you feel inspired or whether immediate results are visible, you will remain trapped in the same unproductive cycle. Start, get excited, get distracted, give up. This pattern is broken not through brute force, but through laser-like focus, initiated each morning. A disciplined mind understands that the true adversary is not external failure, but internal disconnection. That pervasive feeling of navigating each day as if it were an accident, as if you possess no agency in choosing how you wish to feel, how you intend to act, or how you choose to respond. And this, fundamentally, is a falsehood. You can choose. You can choose which thoughts to nurture, which habits to uphold, which excuses to dismantle. But you cannot make these choices without awareness. And awareness only emerges when you pause, when you breathe, and when you deliberately guide your mind before the world floods it with noise. So, I ask you, what are you feeding your mind each morning? What thoughts are looping endlessly in your consciousness before you even manage to get out of bed? Because if you start your day steeped in guilt, resentment, or comparison, you are digging a defensive trench on your own territory. And the most alarming aspect is that you often fail to even recognize it. You label it routine, but in reality, it's a slow, insidious form of self-destruction. The person who fails to take ownership of their first thought has already lost half the battle for the day. This is because thought dictates emotion, emotion guides action, and action, in turn, creates your reality. If your initial thought is, "I really don't want to get up today," it's going to be another struggle. Then every subsequent moment becomes infected by that negative energy. But if your first thought is a conscious choice, not an imposed burden, then you reclaim your power. If you decide to imbue your day with direction from its inception, then the remainder of your day possesses a strong, resilient backbone. It won't be perfect. It certainly won't always be easy, but it will have structure. And it is this very structure that sustains you when sheer emotion proves insufficient. Take control with something as profoundly simple as rising at the exact time you promised yourself you would, not out of obligation, but as an act of profound self-respect. Then, take a moment to breathe. Write down what you are determined to achieve. And for just 2 minutes, visualize the version of yourself who has already accomplished it. See how they move, how they walk, how they speak to themselves. That version is not a mere figment of imagination. It is a tangible possibility, but you can only truly reach it if your current self begins to make decisions that are aligned with that future reality. And all of this, absolutely all of it, begins in the morning, the moment where your vision is sown, where your focus is calibrated, where the entire tone of your day is deliberately set. If you do not master this singular moment, others will inevitably master you. But if you conquer it, then everything else begins to fall into place, because the external world fundamentally obeys those who have learned to command themselves from within. And the most effective training for that self-mastery begins the very instant you open your eyes. The most common mistake made by those who consistently fall short is not that they fail to try, but that they embark on their day without clear direction, without a genuine commitment to themselves. Waking up early holds no inherent value if it's done without purpose. Sipping coffee while staring blankly at a screen lacks impact if there's no underlying intention. You can spend an entire day engaged in activity and still end it feeling utterly empty, because mere busyness is not the same as productivity. And productivity, in turn, is not synonymous with genuine progress. True progress is only achieved when clarity is present, and that clarity is meticulously built from the very first instant you open your eyes. If you are serious about ending the cycle of failure, you don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You simply need to begin your day with intention, with direction, with a plan. A plan that is simple, yet profoundly powerful. A plan that you repeat so consistently that your mind recognizes it as an unbreakable command. And if you are here, listening, it signifies that something within you is tired of the recurring cycles, that something deep inside you knows you are capable of more, that you deserve more, and that you have been postponing it out of fear, out of doubt, or out of a lack of foundational structure. But this can change, not through eloquent words, but through concrete actions, through a different kind of morning. A morning where you look at yourself in the mirror and see a discernible shift. A morning where, even if the outside world doesn't acknowledge it, you feel something profoundly different stirring within you. A sense of determination, of firmness, of a potent, quiet resolve. That feeling of today, I will. Not because all problems are magically solved, but because this time, you will not betray yourself. This time, you will follow through, even if no one is watching. Even if there are no external accolades, even if it requires significant effort, because you are inherently worthy, and you are no longer willing to endure another day that feels like a mere copy of the one before. And if these words are resonating deeply with you, if something within you is signaling that this is the opportune moment for change, then I urge you to subscribe now. Not for the channel, not for the sake of more videos, but for yourself, to serve as a daily reminder that a different path exists, that a more resilient, clearer, and more focused way of living is attainable, that there is a space where growth, discipline, and conscious living are honored, and that you are not alone. Many of us are deciding to stop surrendering, to stop postponing, to stop settling. Each new subscriber here represents a soul who has decided to fundamentally alter how they begin their day, and in doing so, to reshape their journey through life. Type into the comments below, "This time, I will follow through for myself." Write it not for me, but for you, so that tomorrow, when that alarm clock rings, you will recall that promise and honor it. Because that simple phrase can evolve into your personal code, your guiding compass, your anchor. And if you repeat it sufficiently, your mind will begin to believe it. And when your mind believes, you act. And when you act, you are no longer repeating the same old story. You are actively writing a new one, with the ink of your will, with the letters of your character, on pages filled with resolute decisions. This is where transformation truly begins, not with a grand miracle, but with a single, different morning. It starts right here, right now. What many fail to grasp is that each morning presents an unparalleled opportunity to rewrite yourself. You don't need the calendar to turn, nor the start of a new month, nor the arrival of Monday. Every single day that you open your eyes is a silent invitation from destiny itself. Will you continue to live as you did yesterday, or will you consciously endeavor to build something new? And this construction process is not primarily emotional. It is not dictated by how motivated you happen to feel on any given day. It is determined by the extent to which you are willing to act, even when you lack the desire. Because if your commitment to yourself is contingent upon your mood, you are trapped, enslaved by fleeting impulses, hormonal fluctuations, the weather, or your immediate environment. But if your commitment is unwavering, if it is a steadfast principle, then it matters not how you feel. You do what must be done. You move, you organize, you sustain yourself, because your word carries more weight than your ephemeral emotions. The true differentiator between the individual who achieves greatness and the one who perpetually stalls halfway is not intelligence, nor sheer luck, nor strategic connections. It is the invisible discipline, the kind that goes unnoticed by others, yet has the power to transform everything. It's the discipline that compels you to rise early when no one is compelling you, the discipline that guides you to plan your day when you could easily succumb to improvisation. It's what drives you to read, to write, to train your mind, to set firm boundaries, to breathe deeply before reacting. It's what cultivates inner strength, even in the absence of external applause. It is this silent discipline that truly makes the difference, that hardens you without making you cold, that sharpens your focus without rendering you rigid, that transforms you because you cease to be a slave to your old habits and instead become the architect of your own evolving identity. But none of this profound change can manifest if you do not integrate it into your routine, making it non-negotiable. You do not require more motivation. You require rituals that consistently remind you of who you are, who you aspire to be, and what you are genuinely prepared to do to get there. And these foundational rituals commence at the very moment of awakening, with a deep, conscious breath, with a clear affirmation, with a decisive action, with a silent, internal declaration that boldly states, "Today, I will not fail myself." Repeat that sentiment every single morning. Write it down, read it aloud, feel its weight, and make it your personal mantra, because the individual who consistently honors their commitments becomes virtually invincible. They may still encounter difficult days, moments of profound doubt, but they will not be stopped. They will not disintegrate. They will not become lost, because their internal direction is ultimately more powerful than any fleeting emotion. And over time, this inner fortitude begins to radiate outward. Your decisions become quicker, your voice gains a new firmness, your posture straightens, your presence becomes more defined and clear, because you have meticulously constructed an internal framework that reliably sustains you. And this structure was not bestowed upon you by the external world. It was built by you. Personally, every single morning when you chose to cease repeating the past, when you diligently performed what was necessary, even when it was challenging, when you began to treat yourself with the respect and commitment befitting your best possible version. That, precisely that, is what sets you apart. Not perfection, but steadfastness. Not an absence of errors, but an absence of excuses. Because what began as a small, almost insignificant habit ultimately blossomed into an entirely new way of living. And this subtle yet undeniable transformation changes absolutely everything. The majority of individuals falter not because they lack dreams, but because they have not learned the crucial art of protecting their energy. They might start their mornings with noble intentions, but the moment the day begins to exert its pressures, they forget everything. This isn't a sign of unwillingness to progress. It's a lack of a robust strategy to maintain focus when the external environment pulls at them, when notifications incessantly buzz, when problems inevitably arise, when others demand their time, their attention, their very mental space. And it is precisely in these moments that the day ultimately slips through their fingers. They don't lose their day at 5 p.m. They lose it at 9 a.m. when they allow the external chaos to dictate their internal compass. Therefore, if you are committed to ending the pattern of failure, you must not only possess a plan, but you must also diligently shield your focus, transforming it into an unassailable fortress. In a world that relentlessly competes for your attention every single second, focus is no longer merely an advantage. It is an absolute necessity. The morning stands as the most sacred time of the day because it remains uncontaminated by the urgent demands of others. It is a pure, clean, silent space, and if you fail to utilize it effectively, it will be filled with noise. And that noise, however innocent it may seem, invariably pulls you further away from your true objectives. Distraction might appear harmless on any given day, but repeating that pattern daily is precisely what breeds a mediocre existence. A life characterized by constant activity, but no genuine advancement, by perpetual motion, but no meaningful depth. And this is what ultimately drains you. Not the effort itself, but the absence of purpose. Not the hard work, but the disconnection from your core vision. Therefore, you must employ every morning as an opportunity for deliberate reprogramming, not in a symbolic sense, but in a practical, strategic manner. You need to train yourself to return to your center, to actively filter what enters your mind, to consciously select what you think about, what you focus on, and what you empower. Create a ritual that anchors you, that compels you to remember who you are before the external world attempts to define you. This could be a written affirmation, a pivotal question, a mindful breath, or a powerful visualization, but you must perform it daily, without excuses, without pauses, without interruptions, because this practice not only prepares you, but also powerfully protects you. It shields you from chaos, from anxiety, from confusion, and from that unsettling sensation of being alive yet adrift without direction. And this ritual doesn't need to consume an hour. It simply needs to be genuine, to connect you with your vision, and to remind you that your time is valuable, that your mind is not available for rent, and that your energy is not freely at anyone's disposal. And if you maintain this focused discipline, if you embed it deeply into your daily practice, then something profound begins to shift. Distractions lose their potent grip. The urgencies of others no longer derail you from your center. Your emotions cease to be the primary drivers because you have firmly decided that you will not fail due to a lack of clarity, that you will not repeat the same old narrative, that you will not surrender your most valuable asset, your attention, to pursuits that do not contribute to your growth. And this transformation, though perhaps imperceptible at first, is what ultimately makes you unstoppable, Because the individual who masters their focus invariably masters their destiny. The fundamental problem is not the occasional failure itself. It's the subsequent construction of an internal narrative that justifies continued shortcomings. It's a silent, pervasive story that you repeat each morning, often without conscious awareness, telling yourself, "I'm not good enough. I always give up. I simply don't have what it takes." And this voice, which may seem like a mere whisper, gradually solidifies into an internal command, a deep-seated programming that dictates your actions, sabotages your decisions, and inevitably returns you to the same starting point, even when you genuinely strive to move forward. Because no habit is more fundamentally destructive than the way you speak to yourself. The very thoughts you entertain upon waking, the judgments you cast upon yourself as the day is just beginning. Therefore, if you are determined to overcome failure, you must fundamentally change that internal narrative. You must actively rewrite the way you perceive yourself. For you cannot construct a new life upon the foundation of a mind that continues to rehearse the same old falsehoods. No profound transformation can occur without a deliberate reprogramming of your mental landscape. And this reprogramming is not an act of magic, nor is it superficial positive thinking. It is the result of strategic repetition, conscious affirmation, and a daily practice of choosing, with unwavering resolve, the specific kind of person you aspire to become, until that person becomes your undeniable reality. This is not achieved through blind faith, but through diligently cultivated conviction. Each morning, you must speak to yourself as if you have already embodied that transformed version. It matters not if you don't yet feel it. It matters not if your current circumstances do not yet reflect it. You train yourself from within, because if your mind genuinely believes it, your body will follow, and if your body acts in alignment, your life will inevitably transform. It is that simple and that powerful. This is not about self-deception. It is about directing your mind before it drags you back into the familiar, destructive pattern. Tell yourself, out loud, every single morning, "Today, I will act as a disciplined, strong, and determined individual." Do this even if you don't fully feel that way yet, because by repeating it, by sustaining that intention, by moving from that energetic stance, you begin the profound process of transforming your identity. An identity is the absolute core of everything. You do not act based solely on what you wish for. You act based on what you fundamentally believe yourself to be. And if every day you reinforce the narrative that you are weak, easily distracted, and inconsistent, then your behavior will inevitably mirror that belief. But if, each day, you affirm with absolute clarity who you have consciously decided to be, even before the feeling fully settles in, then what begins today as mere affirmation will, by tomorrow, solidify into genuine character. The morning is the most opportune moment to install this new narrative before the insidious tendrils of doubt can interrupt, before the external noise can contaminate your resolve. When there is still sufficient silence to truly hear yourself with honesty, do it. Write it down, repeat it, and if necessary, record yourself and listen to it daily. For the human mind often struggles to distinguish between what is real and what is consistently repeated. It simply requires constancy. It requires direction. And if you do not take that direction, someone or something else will. The world will readily tell you what to think, how to feel, and what to fear. But if you anticipate these external influences, if you plant your own truth first, then all else loses its power, because you have deliberately chosen your narrative. And an individual who consciously chooses their story each morning has already begun to win, even before they have physically risen from their bed. One of the most insidious, yet often overlooked causes of failure is the absence of emotional closure with the past. Many individuals begin their day with their physical presence firmly in the present moment, yet their minds remain ensnared by past mistakes, by decisions left unmade, by opportunities that were allowed to slip away, by hurtful words that still echo, by moments of personal failure for which they have not yet granted themselves forgiveness. Consequently, even as they attempt to focus, even with the clearest of goals in sight, they drag behind them an invisible burden that fundamentally sabotages their forward momentum. Because no one can truly build a future when they wake each morning burdened by the guilt of yesterday. That guilt slows you down. That guilt breeds doubt. That guilt compels you to start each day with diminished energy, your mind divided between the aspirations you hold and the burdens you have failed to release. You must internalize this critical understanding. What you do not bring to a close, you are destined to repeat. What you do not forgive, you fundamentally limit yourself by. What you refuse to confront, you will inevitably be dragged along by. Therefore, a foundational element of each and every morning must be the conscious act of clearing the ground, of forgiving yourself for what you did not know or could not do at the time, of accepting that in that past moment, you acted with the level of awareness available to you then. If you would approach that same situation differently today, it is because you have grown, because you have learned, because you have become a different person. And this recognition is not a sign of weakness. It is a profound marker of maturity. A mature individual does not dwell on justifying their past, nor do they remain paralyzed by it. They honor it, they learn from it, they transcend it, and in doing so, they reclaim their energy, they restore their focus, and they liberate themselves. Each morning, if you aspire to true power, you must intentionally pause, close your eyes, take a deep, cleansing breath, and silently affirm, "Today, I will not punish myself. Today, I will leverage everything I have been to become even better." This statement may sound remarkably simple, but when spoken with genuine intention, with deep consciousness, and with an open heart, it cleanses more effectively than hours of introspective analysis. It restores your inherent right to move forward unburdened. It reminds you that you are not defined by your mistakes. You are the individual who confronted them and resolutely chose to continue walking, with greater strength, with clearer purpose, and with profound compassion toward yourself. Because the person who treats themselves with dignity and respect each morning begins their day from a place of strength, not from a position of inherent lack. This is not about forgetting what you have experienced. It is about integrating it, about using it as fuel, about declaring, "This happened, but it does not define me. This caused pain, but it taught me. This was a failure, but I am not a failure." This is the narrative you need to embed within yourself, not because it is inherently pleasant, but because it is fundamentally functional. It is this narrative that empowers you to move forward with an open chest, a straight back, and an unwavering gaze. And when this internal stance is sustained each morning, it fundamentally alters how you walk, how you speak, and how you make decisions, because you are no longer fleeing from your past. You are actively using it as a solid foundation. And that foundation, cleansed of guilt and solidified by intention, provides a stability that the external world can never offer. Remember, each new day is an unwritten page. Do not bring the stains of yesterday. Do not begin with yesterday's faded ink. Choose to write something new, something firm, something authentically yours, something truly worthy of your potential. And to achieve this, the very first thing you must release is the notion that you must continue to carry the weight of everything. No, not today. Today begins differently. Today, you choose to move forward unburdened. And an individual who moves forward with lightness can journey as far as their spirit desires. The most significant error perpetuated by those who repeatedly falter is the assumption that transforming their lives necessitates a radical, all-encompassing overhaul. They mistakenly believe they require a dramatic metamorphosis, a miraculous event, a definitive breaking point where everything will magically realign. However, the reality is quite different. Profound transformations do not originate from drastic decisions. They emerge from small, sustained commitments, from acts so simple they might initially seem insignificant, but which, when accumulated day after day, solidify into unshakable foundations. You do not fail because you lack the innate capacity for change. You falter because you profoundly underestimate the quiet power of the small, consistent actions. You fail to believe that waking just 5 minutes earlier, writing 3 sentences in a notebook, choosing a more constructive response to anger, or drinking water before your coffee can fundamentally alter the trajectory of your life. Yet, it can, and it will, provided you repeat it, provided you honor it, provided you integrate it into your emerging identity. You must abandon the romantic notion of change as something inherently dramatic. True transformation is not loud. It requires no epic musical score. It is often quiet, repetitive, and at times, even mundane. But it is precisely within these seemingly unremarkable actions that the magic resides, in what you do when no one is observing, in what you continue to do even when immediate results are not visible, in what you sustain even when you lack the motivation. And to sustain these actions, you need an internal emotional structure that serves as a constant reminder, a voice from within that articulates, this small act, though it may seem like nothing, is everything. Because when you stumble, you fall not due to a lack of knowledge, but due to a lack of a coherent system. And that system is meticulously constructed through aligned micro-actions, through clear, deliberate steps, through established order. If each morning you awaken with the overwhelming thought that you need to change your entire life, you will likely end up exhausted before you even begin. But if, each morning, you tell yourself, today, I will simply become better in one specific area, just one, then you reclaim your power, not by being overwhelmed, but by focusing. And that focused effort, sustained over a week, a month, a year, has the power to make you invincible. Because you are not competing against the external world, you are diligently building yourself from the inside out, step by deliberate step, brick by intentional brick, with the patience of someone who needs no external validation, only the quiet satisfaction of moving forward. Ask yourself each morning, what is one small thing I can do today that will bring me a fraction closer to my best possible version? Not perfection, not ultimate success, but simply your best version. It might be a decision, a conversation, a chosen silence, an excuse you finally refuse to accept. Any action, as long as it is conscious, as long as it is yours, as long as it is real. Because when you choose a small, daily victory, something deep within you strengthens. And as that inner resilience grows, failure no longer inflicts the same pain, because it ceases to be an endpoint and transforms into a profound teacher. And this is how true victory is achieved, not through grand gestures, but through minimal, yet consistent, daily effort. Effort that is firm, effort that is decisively aligned with your purpose. Then, one day, you will awaken and realize that all you had once dreamed of did not arrive by some miraculous intervention, but because you refused to surrender with the small things. And the individual who does not give up on the small things invariably achieves the great things. And in the end, when all is said and done, when the days have passed and the excuses can no longer sustain themselves, you will grasp a truth that is both simple and inescapable. You did not fail due to a lack of opportunities. You failed because you did not take control of yourself each and every morning. Because in every dawn, you were presented with the chance to alter your narrative, to rewrite your destiny, to walk a different path, and you chose instead to postpone, to repeat, to wait. But if you are here today, if you have navigated through to this point, it is because something within you can no longer tolerate remaining the same. Because deep within you resides a voice that silently cries out, enough of this repetition. And that voice, when listened to with courage, transforms into your guide, your source of strength, your catalyst for rebirth. You were not brought into this world to merely survive the days. You were meant to construct a life that is truly worth living, a life filled with purpose, with character, with authentic power. But such a life is not given. It is earned, it is conquered. And it is conquered when you cease negotiating with your excuses, when you make an unwavering commitment to your highest potential, when each morning you awaken with a single, paramount question in your mind. How can I honor myself today? Because when an individual honors themselves, when they decide to stop being solely the product of their past and instead become the deliberate architect of their present reality, then the world no longer drags them along. They move through it, they command it, they transform it. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. It will never arrive. You do not need more information, more motivation, or more inspiration. What you urgently require is emotional discipline, unwavering internal commitment, a sacred morning ritual, and a brutally honest decision. Today, I am taking complete responsibility for myself. Because you no longer wish to look back with regret, because you are no longer willing to be a passive observer of your own life story, because you know, in the deepest recesses of your being, that you are meant for something more. And that more is not achieved through passive dreaming. It is achieved through decisive action. You absolutely can achieve the life you desire. You can reclaim your confidence. You can attain clarity, strength, success, and profound fulfillment. But this is only possible if you begin to act each morning as an individual who no longer betrays themselves, as an individual who requires no external push, as an individual who, upon opening their eyes, declares, "Today, I will not fail. Today, I will become the person I was always meant to be." And when that declaration ceases to be a mere wish and becomes your unshakable law, then there is no turning back. Because you are no longer the same person you were yesterday. Because you will no longer allow yourself to be stopped. Because, finally, you have understood. The individual who transforms their morning transforms their entire life. Let's delve deeper into the architecture of intention, specifically how it manifests in the silent preparation for our interactions with the world, and how this silent preparation can dramatically alter the quality of our engagement, not just its outcome. Beyond simply setting goals or planning tasks, a truly robust morning ritual cultivates a nuanced form of emotional resilience. Consider the subtle but profound difference between facing a challenging conversation with a colleague from a reactive stance, feeling defensive, anxious, or resentful about perceived slights, versus approaching it from a place of deliberate composure, empathy, and strategic calm. This latter state isn't accidental. It's the result of internal work done before the external pressure even begins. Imagine the difference in your communication when, instead of bracing for conflict, you've spent your morning affirming your capacity for understanding, for active listening, and for finding common ground. This isn't about suppressing genuine feelings. It's about consciously choosing which internal narrative will guide your outward expression. When you intentionally cultivate a mindset of openness and constructive engagement during your morning quietude, you are essentially pre-programming your neural pathways to favor collaboration over confrontation, clarity over confusion, and measured responses over impulsive reactions. This proactive emotional calibration ensures that when external challenges inevitably arise, you are not caught off guard, scrambling to regain composure. Instead, you are already anchored, possessing an inner fortitude that allows you to navigate complex interpersonal dynamics with a grace and effectiveness that surprise even yourself. Furthermore, this cultivation extends to how we perceive and interact with information. In our hyper-connected age, the morning deluge of news, emails, and social media updates can easily overwhelm our cognitive capacity, scattering our focus before the day truly begins. However, by establishing a morning discipline that prioritizes internal clarity before external input, you are essentially building a mental filter. This filter doesn't block information, but rather helps you discern its relevance and impact. Consider how this applies when you face a complex problem at work. If your morning has been spent affirming your analytical abilities and your capacity for problem solving, you are far more likely to approach that issue with a systematic, confident mindset. Conversely, if your morning was spent absorbing a barrage of conflicting opinions or distressing headlines, your problem-solving approach might be clouded by anxiety and indecision. The key here is to recognize that your mental bandwidth is a finite, precious resource. By consciously dedicating the initial moments of your day to fortifying your mind and aligning it with your core intentions, you are essentially investing this resource wisely, ensuring it is available for the tasks and challenges that truly matter, rather than frittering it away on ephemeral distractions or unproductive anxieties. This deliberate filtering process allows you to engage with the world not as a passive recipient of external stimuli, but as an active, discerning participant. Building on this concept of internal fortification, consider the profound impact of cultivating a sense of anticipation rather than dread. Many approach their mornings with a subconscious expectation of difficulty. They anticipate the obstacles, the demands, the potential for things to go wrong. This anticipation, rooted in past experiences or anxieties, casts a long shadow over the present. Conversely, a morning ritual that actively fosters a sense of eager anticipation for what the day holds, even the challenging aspects, can fundamentally shift your experience. This is not about naive optimism, but about a cultivated perspective that views challenges as opportunities for growth, for learning, or for demonstrating resilience. Imagine preparing for a difficult presentation. If your morning has been filled with affirmations of your expertise and your ability to connect with your audience, you are more likely to approach the event with a sense of confident readiness. The internal narrative shifts from, "I hope I don't mess this up," to, "I'm ready to share my insights and make an impact." This proactive framing, established during your quiet morning moments, primes your mind to seek solutions, to remain calm under pressure, and to perform at a higher level, not because you are magically immune to stress, but because you have intentionally prepared your internal landscape to meet it with fortitude. This proactive stance transforms the morning from a necessary preamble to a powerful launchpad. The refinement of our morning ritual transcends mere time management. It extends into the intricate art of emotional inoculation. This isn't about suppressing difficult feelings, but rather about building an internal fortitude that prepares us to encounter them without being immediately destabilized. Consider, for instance, how a morning spent in quiet contemplation of our values, a deliberate reaffirmation of what truly matters to us, independent of external validation, acts as a potent buffer against the inevitable criticism or doubt that may arise later in the day. When faced with a harsh comment from a colleague or a dismissive remark from a client, an individual who has mentally reinforced their intrinsic worth and core principles will be less likely to internalize the negativity. They can recognize the external comment for what it is, a reflection of the other person's perspective, not an objective assessment of their own character or capability. This internal anchoring prevents the momentary setback from derailing their entire day's productivity or emotional stability. Furthermore, this practice of emotional inoculation sharpens our ability to distinguish between constructive feedback and mere negativity. Without this morning preparation, the lines can easily blur. We might dismiss valid criticism as an attack, or conversely, absorb unfounded negativity as gospel. However, when we approach the day from a place of self-awareness and intentionality, cultivated in those first quiet moments, we develop a more discerning ear. We learn to filter external input, asking ourselves, is this information useful for my growth, or is it simply an attempt to undermine me? This discerning faculty is crucial for maintaining momentum. Without it, we risk becoming overly defensive, shutting ourselves off from valuable insights, or conversely, becoming paralyzed by self-doubt, allowing external opinions to dictate our internal reality. The morning becomes a time to calibrate this internal discernment, ensuring that our responses are driven by wisdom rather than immediate emotional reaction. Another crucial layer of this morning preparation involves the deliberate cultivation of a proactive problem-solving orientation. Many individuals approach their days with a reactive mindset, waiting for problems to emerge before they begin to formulate a response. This often leads to hurried, suboptimal solutions, born out of pressure and a lack of forethought. Conversely, dedicating even a few minutes each morning to mentally rehearsing potential challenges and brainstorming proactive strategies can fundamentally shift this dynamic. Imagine facing a looming project deadline. Instead of waking with a sense of dread about the tasks ahead, you might use your morning to visualize potential roadblocks, a delayed delivery, a team member's unexpected absence, and mentally rehearse how you would address each scenario. This mental rehearsal isn't about manifesting problems. It's about preemptively building your capacity to navigate them with grace and efficiency. It transforms you from someone who reacts to crises into someone who anticipates and mitigates them, thereby preserving your energy and focus for actual execution. This proactive approach fosters a sense of agency and control, making you feel more capable and less overwhelmed by the complexities of your day. Building on this, consider the profound impact of this preparation on our communication strategies. When we start our day by consciously defining the tone we wish to set in our interactions, we are far more likely to achieve it. For instance, if your morning involves affirming your intention to communicate with clarity, empathy, and respect, you are inherently more predisposed to listen actively, choose your words carefully, and approach disagreements constructively. This intentionality, established before external pressures mount, acts as an invisible framework for all subsequent conversations. It means that when a difficult dialogue arises, you are not starting from scratch, trying to manage your immediate emotional surge. Instead, You are drawing upon a pre-established commitment to effective and considerate communication. This proactive stance can de-escalate potential conflicts, foster stronger relationships, and ensure that your interactions are more productive and less prone to misinterpretation. It transforms communication from a potential minefield into a deliberate tool for connection and progress. The subtle shift from reacting to orchestrating your internal state is what allows for a truly empowered approach to your day. The profound impact of a consciously crafted morning extends beyond emotional regulation and strategic communication. It fundamentally shapes our capacity for creative problem solving. When the mind is quiet and unfettered by the day's immediate demands, it becomes an ideal fertile ground for novel ideas to emerge. Think of it like allowing a complex equation to sit overnight. Often, the solution becomes clearer upon a fresh look. This isn't simply about waiting for inspiration to strike, but about actively creating the mental space for it to manifest. By dedicating the initial moments of your day to activities that quiet the internal chatter, perhaps a period of unstructured journaling, mindful observation of nature, or engaging with a piece of instrumental music, you are, in essence, loosening the grip of rigid, linear thinking. This mental flexibility is paramount for innovation. It allows disparate concepts to connect in unexpected ways, leading to breakthroughs that would likely remain hidden if the mind were immediately flooded with the urgency of emails and meetings. Furthermore, this deliberate clearing of mental clutter enhances our pattern recognition abilities, not just in relation to our own habits, but concerning the broader systems and challenges we encounter. When the mind is less saturated with immediate sensory input and pre-programmed reactions, it can begin to perceive underlying structures, subtle correlations, and emergent trends that might otherwise go unnoticed. Consider a business leader facing a declining market share. If their morning is spent absorbing news headlines and passively reacting to competitor actions, they might miss the crucial shift in consumer behavior that is subtly taking root. However, if their morning involves a deliberate period of reflection on market dynamics, without the pressure of immediate decision-making, they are far more likely to spot those nascent patterns and adapt proactively, rather than defensively. This enhanced pattern recognition, facilitated by morning intentionality, is the bedrock of strategic foresight, allowing individuals and organizations to move from a position of reaction to one of informed anticipation. Building upon this, let's examine how these morning practices refine our decision-making acuity. The ability to make sound judgments, especially under pressure, is not an innate talent for most. It is a skill honed through consistent practice and conscious preparation. When you begin your day by clarifying your priorities, envisioning desired outcomes, and even mentally walking through potential scenarios, you are, in effect, conducting a series of low-stakes decision-making simulations. This mental rehearsal strengthens your cognitive pathways for judgment. For instance, if a manager begins their day by visualizing a challenging negotiation, considering various approaches, and envisioning the ideal resolution, they are far better equipped to handle the actual negotiation when it occurs. Their mind is not encountering the situation for the first time in a high-pressure environment. It has already processed it, explored options, and developed a strategic framework. This preemptive cognitive workout significantly reduces the likelihood of impulsive or emotionally driven choices, leading to more measured, effective, and strategically sound decisions throughout the day. It transforms decision-making from a potentially fraught ordeal into a more fluid, confident process, rooted in prior reflection rather than immediate reaction. Consequently, the cumulative effect of these morning practices fosters a remarkable increase in personal accountability and ownership. When you actively design and commit to your morning routine, you are demonstrating a profound act of self-governance. You are taking tangible responsibility for how you begin your day, and by extension, how you approach its challenges. This deliberate act of self-direction cultivates a sense of internal locus of control, diminishing the tendency to blame external factors for setbacks. Imagine an entrepreneur facing unexpected financial hurdles. If their morning has been dedicated to establishing discipline, problem-solving, and maintaining a clear focus on their long-term vision, they are far more likely to view the setback not as a fatal blow, but as a problem to be solved, and to take ownership of the steps needed to overcome it. This proactive ownership is the antithesis of victimhood. It is the embodiment of agency, allowing individuals to navigate adversity with resilience and a deep-seated conviction in their ability to influence their circumstances. The morning, therefore, becomes not just a time for preparation, but a daily affirmation of one's power to shape their own reality. The subtle art of weaving intention into the fabric of our mornings extends its influence into how we cultivate situational awareness, a crucial skill often overlooked in the rush to simply get things done. Beyond merely noticing what's happening around us, situational awareness involves a deep comprehension of the dynamics at play, the unspoken currents, the potential ripple effects of our actions, and the precise context in which we are operating. Imagine a leader preparing for a critical negotiation. A basic morning routine might involve reviewing talking points. However, a more advanced approach, honed through morning intention, involves mentally simulating the entire environment. The mood of the other party based on recent interactions, the potential political undercurrents in their organization, even the subtle nonverbal cues they might exhibit. This isn't about clairvoyance, but about a deliberate exercise in anticipating variables and their potential impact. By dedicating a few moments to this form of cognitive mapping, you begin to operate not just with a plan, but with a nuanced understanding of the unfolding landscape, allowing for more agile and adaptive decision-making when challenges arise. This practice transforms your readiness from a passive state to an active, dynamic posture. Furthermore, consider how this morning cultivation enhances our cognitive flexibility. In an era defined by rapid change, the ability to pivot, to adapt strategies on the fly, and to embrace new information without rigid adherence to preconceived notions is paramount. When your morning ritual includes engaging with diverse perspectives, perhaps through reading an article from a viewpoint starkly different from your own, or through a brief period of reflective listening to a podcast that challenges conventional wisdom, you are actively expanding your mental horizons. This intentional exposure to variety doesn't just broaden your knowledge base, it primes your mind to hold multiple, sometimes contradictory, ideas concurrently without experiencing cognitive dissonance. Consequently, when faced with a situation that defies easy categorization or demands a departure from established procedures, your mind is less likely to default to rigid, familiar responses. Instead, it is more adept at synthesizing novel information and generating innovative solutions. This flexibility is the hallmark of true adaptability, allowing you to navigate complexity not by resisting it, but by fluidly integrating its elements. Building on this concept of intellectual agility, let's examine how mornings spent intentionally can refine our risk assessment capabilities. Many approach risks with an emotional bias, either an overly cautious aversion or a reckless disregard. A more discerning approach, cultivated through morning reflection, involves a systematic, dispassionate evaluation of potential outcomes. Imagine an entrepreneur considering a significant investment. A reactive approach might involve focusing solely on the potential profit or the fear of loss. However, a morning ritual that incorporates a brief mental exercise in identifying and quantifying potential risks, not to paralyze decision-making, but to understand the variables, can lead to more robust strategies. This involves asking specific questions. What are the best case, worst case, and most probable scenarios? What mitigating factors can be put in place? What is the true cost of inaction versus the cost of taking the plunge? By engaging in this disciplined assessment prior to the heat of the moment, you move beyond gut feelings and toward informed judgment, significantly increasing the likelihood of navigating uncertainty successfully. Conversely, this intentional morning preparation fosters a more profound emotional regulation during conflict resolution. Beyond simply managing one's own emotions, this involves a conscious effort to anticipate the emotional states of others and to approach difficult conversations with a predetermined stance of empathy and understanding. Consider a manager needing to deliver critical feedback to an underperforming team member. A reactive approach might lead to an accusatory or dismissive tone, escalating tension. However, if the morning has included a brief visualization of the conversation, focusing on the employee's potential anxieties and insecurities, and affirming an intention to approach the discussion with support and constructive guidance, the outcome is likely to be far more positive. This proactive emotional tuning allows you to frame your message not as a judgment, but as an offer of assistance, thereby opening channels for genuine dialogue and collaboration rather than defensiveness and resistance. It shifts the dynamic from confrontation to collaborative problem-solving. This deliberate calibration of your internal state is what allows you to influence external interactions far more effectively than through mere reaction. Furthermore, the consistent practice of directing your morning attention cultivates a heightened sense of strategic foresight. This is more than simply anticipating the next step. It's about understanding the long-term implications of present actions and aligning daily efforts with distant objectives. Think of a chess player who doesn't just consider the immediate move, but plans several moves ahead, understanding how each piece's position will influence future possibilities. Similarly, dedicating time each morning to visualizing not just the immediate task, but its contribution to a larger goal, imbues your actions with a deeper purpose. This might involve reflecting on how completing a specific report today contributes to a broader project's success, or how a challenging conversation aligns with fostering a more positive team dynamic in the long run. This foresight prevents you from becoming lost in the minutiae of daily operations and ensures that your efforts are consistently directed towards meaningful progress. It transforms your daily activities from a series of disconnected events into a coherent narrative of purposeful advancement. Finally, this deliberate morning cultivation nurtures a vital capacity for discerning signal from noise. In our information-saturated world, the ability to filter out irrelevant data and focus on what is truly significant is a competitive advantage. When your morning includes a brief period of intentional information processing, perhaps by reviewing your core objectives and consciously deciding which incoming data streams are relevant to those objectives, you are actively training this discernment. This isn't about ignoring information, but about consciously choosing where to direct your precious cognitive resources. Imagine a marketer deciding on a new campaign strategy. Without a morning discipline for filtering, they might be swayed by every fleeting trend or competitor announcement. However, if their morning involves affirming their brand's core values and target audience, they can more effectively evaluate incoming market data, prioritizing insights that align with their fundamental objectives and dismissing those that represent mere ephemeral distractions. This refined ability to distinguish what truly matters allows for sharper focus, more impactful decisions, and a more efficient allocation of energy, preventing valuable efforts from being diluted by irrelevant stimuli. The intentional cultivation of our mornings extends beyond mere self-discipline. It fundamentally shapes our capacity for innovative thinking, moving us from a state of problem-solving to one of genuine creation. When the mind is allowed to wander in a structured, purposeful way during those initial quiet hours, it can forge connections between seemingly disparate pieces of information that would otherwise remain isolated. Consider a composer waking with a vague sense of melody. Instead of immediately trying to force it into a predetermined structure, they might spend their morning improvising on an instrument, allowing variations to emerge organically. This process of free exploration, unburdened by the pressure of immediate output, often yields unexpected motifs and harmonic progressions that form the very essence of a groundbreaking composition. This is not about waiting for divine inspiration, but about creating the fertile ground from which creativity can spontaneously sprout. Furthermore, this proactive engagement with nascent ideas during the morning hours fosters a unique form of cognitive synergy. It allows for the integration of subconscious insights with conscious intention. Imagine an author grappling with a complex plot point. While asleep, their subconscious mind may have been actively processing narrative threads. Upon waking and engaging in a period of focused contemplation, perhaps by reviewing their character arcs and thematic elements, they can often access those subtle subconscious solutions. This is not about passive reception. It's about actively seeking out and integrating those emergent insights. By dedicating the morning to this internal dialogue, you are essentially bridging the gap between intuition and intellect, allowing your creative processes to flow more seamlessly and effectively. Another crucial facet of morning intentionality lies in its ability to cultivate adaptive learning. In a world where knowledge obsolesces rapidly, the capacity to continuously acquire and integrate new information is not just an advantage, but a necessity. When your morning routine includes exposure to novel concepts or skill-building exercises, even for a brief period, you are actively rewiring your brain to be more receptive to learning. Consider a software developer who dedicates their first hour to exploring a new programming language's documentation or experimenting with an unfamiliar algorithm. This proactive acquisition of knowledge, undertaken before the demands of project work begin, ensures that when faced with a novel technical challenge, their mind is already primed with the relevant conceptual frameworks. This proactive learning transforms them from someone who reacts to new information into someone who actively seeks and assimilates it, thereby staying ahead of the curve. Consequently, the impact of this morning discipline on strategic foresight is amplified. It transcends simply anticipating the next immediate step. It involves a deeper understanding of how present actions will shape future possibilities, enabling a more profound alignment of daily efforts with long-term objectives. Think of a seasoned gardener who meticulously plans their planting schedule not just for the immediate season, but for years to come, considering soil health, crop rotation, and the eventual maturity of their plants. Similarly, dedicating time each morning to reflecting on how completing a specific research task today contributes to a larger investigative goal, or how a difficult interpersonal adjustment aligns with fostering a more cohesive team environment in the future, imbues your daily actions with a profound sense of purpose. This foresight prevents individuals from becoming lost in the granular details of immediate tasks and ensures that their endeavors are consistently directed toward meaningful, sustained advancement. It transforms the daily rhythm from a series of disconnected events into a coherent narrative of purposeful evolution, laying the groundwork for sustained impact. The cultivation of our mornings also significantly enhances our capacity for anticipatory recalibration. This means not just adapting to unforeseen circumstances, but proactively adjusting our internal compass based on subtle shifts in our environment or understanding before those shifts demand an urgent reaction. Consider a project manager who begins their day by reviewing not only their task list, but also any emergent team dynamics or external pressures noted the previous evening. This might involve a brief mental exercise in hypothesizing how a competitor's recent announcement might influence client expectations, or how a slight dip in team morale could impact workflow. By mentally simulating these potential adjustments, not as problems to solve, but as informational inputs to integrate, they prepare their strategic thinking to be more fluid and responsive. This allows them to subtly steer their focus or adjust their immediate priorities without being blindsided, thereby maintaining momentum and preventing minor adjustments from snowballing into significant deviations. It's about fine-tuning the trajectory before the course correction becomes a drastic maneuver. Furthermore, this proactive morning engagement sharpens our insight synthesis. This refers to the ability to draw meaningful conclusions from diverse streams of information, integrating disparate observations into a cohesive understanding that informs future action. Think of a historian who, after a night's rest, returns to their research with a fresh perspective. They might spend their morning reviewing notes from various sources, archival documents, scholarly articles, personal correspondence, and consciously seeking connections or contradictions that were not apparent during the initial, perhaps more fragmented, review. This deliberate act of connecting the dots, of weaving together various threads of evidence, allows for a richer, more nuanced interpretation of events. It transforms raw data into actionable knowledge, revealing underlying trends or hidden causal relationships that might otherwise remain obscured. This synthesis is not about mere accumulation of facts, but about distilling wisdom from complexity, a process significantly aided by the focused introspection afforded by a deliberate morning. Building on this, consider how the intentional structuring of our mornings refines our predictive modeling. This involves developing a more nuanced understanding of cause and effect within our personal and professional spheres, moving beyond simple correlation to a more sophisticated grasp of predictive relationships. Imagine a salesperson who begins their day by reflecting on the specific client interactions from the previous week. This isn't just a retrospective review. It's an active analysis of what specific communication tactics led to positive engagement, what inquiries were left unanswered, and what underlying needs might have been subtly expressed. By consciously modeling these interactions, identifying the variables that consistently led to desired outcomes, they can refine their approach for future client engagements. This predictive modeling, honed through morning reflection, allows for more targeted efforts, reducing wasted energy and increasing the probability of success by learning from observable patterns rather than relying on guesswork. It's about transforming past experience into future advantage. Conversely, this morning discipline fosters a profound capacity for contextual framing. This involves the ability to understand situations not in isolation, but within their broader historical, social, or organizational context. Consider a team leader preparing for a departmental meeting. A superficial approach might focus solely on the agenda items. However, a leader who utilizes their morning for deeper reflection might consider the current economic climate, recent company-wide policy changes, or even the prevailing mood within the broader workforce. By mentally situating the meeting's objectives within this wider framework, they can anticipate potential objections, tailor their communication more effectively, and ensure that the discussions remain relevant and impactful. This contextual framing prevents actions from being taken in a vacuum, ensuring that decisions are not only sound in the immediate sense, but also strategically aligned with the larger picture. Moreover, the consistent practice of intentional mornings cultivates a heightened sense of disruptive foresight. This goes beyond anticipating incremental changes to recognizing the potential for paradigm shifts and understanding how to position oneself to either leverage or mitigate them. Think of an entrepreneur who, during their early morning quietude, actively seeks out information on emerging technologies or societal trends that could fundamentally alter their industry. This might involve reading speculative articles, engaging with thought leaders' analyses, or simply allowing their mind to explore what-if scenarios related to technological advancements or shifts in consumer behavior. This deliberate immersion in potential future disruptions allows them not just to react to change when it arrives, but to anticipate its trajectory, to understand its implications, and to strategically position themselves or their organization to either benefit from it or navigate its challenges effectively. It is about transforming the unknown from a source of anxiety into a landscape of strategic opportunity. This proactive engagement with the evolving external landscape is what separates those who are merely successful from those who truly lead and innovate. The deliberate cultivation of our mornings can profoundly unlock our capacity for nuanced contextual understanding. This goes beyond merely grasping the surface-level details of a situation. It involves a deep appreciation for the intricate web of influences and historical precedents that shape present realities. Imagine a diplomat preparing for sensitive international negotiations. A rudimentary morning might involve reviewing the latest policy briefs. However, a more developed approach, honed through intentional morning reflection, would include mentally tracing the historical trajectory of the bilateral relationship, recalling key past agreements, and considering the cultural underpinnings that inform each party's expectations. This isn't about memorizing facts, but about synthesizing a comprehensive understanding of the why behind current positions. By dedicating time to this deep dive, you move from simply reacting to stimuli to responding with informed perspective, anticipating potential friction points rooted in historical dynamics, and preparing strategies that acknowledge and respect those deeper layers. This practice transforms your engagement from a transactional encounter into a strategically informed dialogue. Furthermore, this intentional morning practice sharpens our evaluative discernment. This is the ability to critically assess information, not just for its veracity, but for its relevance, its underlying assumptions, and its potential biases. Consider a researcher delving into complex scientific literature. A reactive approach might involve accepting findings at face value. However, a morning dedicated to cultivating critical thought would involve consciously questioning the methodologies employed, scrutinizing the funding sources of studies, and actively seeking out dissenting opinions or alternative interpretations. This deliberate exercise in critical analysis isn't about fostering cynicism, but about developing a robust intellectual filter that allows you to separate well-supported conclusions from speculative claims or agenda-driven narratives. It builds an internal framework for informed judgment, ensuring that your understanding is built on a solid foundation of evidence and critical inquiry. Building on this, let's explore how the intentional structuring of our mornings refines our predictive modeling of human behavior. This involves developing a more nuanced grasp of the psychological drivers that influence actions, moving beyond simple cause and effect to a more sophisticated understanding of motivations and potential responses. Imagine a sales professional preparing for a crucial client meeting. A basic morning might involve reviewing client demographics. However, a more advanced approach, informed by intentional reflection, would involve considering the client's recent business performance, their expressed pain points from previous conversations, and even their underlying personality traits as observed in earlier interactions. By mentally modeling these psychological variables, not to stereotype, but to understand potential motivations and anticipate responses, they can tailor their approach with greater precision. This allows for communication that resonates on a deeper level, addressing not just stated needs, but also underlying desires and concerns, thereby fostering stronger rapport and increasing the likelihood of successful engagement. It's about transforming experience into informed intuition. Conversely, this morning discipline fosters a profound capacity for proactive environmental alignment. This means not just adapting to external circumstances, but actively shaping your immediate surroundings to support your intentions and goals. Think of an artist who meticulously arranges their studio before starting a new piece, ensuring that their tools are within easy reach, their lighting is optimal, and their workspace is free from distractions. This isn't merely about aesthetics. It's about creating an external environment that mirrors and reinforces their internal creative state. Similarly, dedicating a few minutes each morning to organizing your workspace, decluttering your digital environment, or even setting a specific intention for the ambient sounds you wish to hear can significantly impact your focus and productivity. This deliberate act of aligning your external world with your internal objectives creates a synergistic effect, amplifying your capacity for focused work and reducing the cognitive load associated with navigating unnecessary friction. It transforms your physical and digital spaces from potential impediments into active collaborators in your pursuit of goals. Moreover, the consistent practice of intentional mornings cultivates a heightened sense of disruptive foresight. This goes beyond anticipating incremental changes to recognizing the potential for paradigm shifts and understanding how to position oneself to either leverage or mitigate them. Think of an entrepreneur who, during their early morning quietude, actively seeks out information on emerging technologies or societal trends that could fundamentally alter their industry. This might involve reading speculative articles, engaging with thought leaders' analyses, or simply allowing their mind to explore what-if scenarios related to technological advancements or shifts in consumer behavior. This deliberate immersion in potential future disruptions allows them not just to react to change when it arrives, but to anticipate its trajectory, to understand its implications, and to strategically position themselves or their organization to either benefit from it or navigate its challenges effectively. It is about transforming the unknown from a source of anxiety into a landscape of strategic opportunity. This proactive engagement with the evolving external landscape is what separates those who are merely successful from those who truly lead and innovate. Reflecting on this journey so far, we've navigated the intricate landscape of personal inception, uncovering how the subtlest of beginnings can architect the grandest of trajectories. It becomes undeniably evident that the seeds of our daily experiences, and indeed our overarching destinies, are sown in the quiet crucible of our early hours. The echoes of those initial choices, those first deliberate breaths and directed thoughts, resonate far beyond the immediate moment, shaping not just our actions, but the very lens through which we perceive opportunity and challenge. It is in this dawning realization that the profound interconnectedness of our internal state and our external reality begins to crystallize, revealing a tapestry woven from countless, often unseen, threads of intention. As we pivot towards the final reflection, it's crucial to appreciate the emergent understanding of how this foundational work, this diligent tending of our personal dawn, acts as a catalyst for broader transformations. The insights we've explored converge to illustrate that the consistent application of conscious direction in those nascent moments doesn't merely yield isolated successes. It cultivates a pervasive resilience. This isn't a fragile optimism built on fleeting emotion, but a robust inner architecture, capable of weathering the inevitable storms of life. The cumulative effect is akin to a finely tuned instrument, capable of producing harmonious resonance even amidst external dissonance. It's about harmonizing our internal landscape so that our outward interactions, our problem-solving, and our creative endeavors are consistently imbued with clarity and purpose, rather than being dictated by reactive impulses or external pressures. In light of these converging insights, the path forward reveals itself not as a radical overhaul, but as a subtle yet powerful recalibration of our most foundational practices. The scattered pieces of our understanding begin to coalesce, forming a coherent picture of how consistent, small-scale directional efforts build momentum, like a river slowly but surely carving its path through stone. This process underscores that the power to shape our experience lies not in grand, infrequent gestures, but in the quiet, persistent artistry of daily beginnings. As we move towards our final declaration, hold on to this synthesized perspective. The journey has illuminated a profound truth about agency, showing us that the mastery of our initial moments is intrinsically linked to the dominion over our entire existence, laying the groundwork for a life consciously, rather than accidentally, lived. The understanding deepens, preparing us for the ultimate realization of our inherent capabilities and the profound power that resides within our own intentionality. You've journeyed through the profound realization that the architecture of our lives is not built by grand, sporadic gestures, but by the quiet, consistent artistry of our mornings. The overarching truth that has unfolded is that the very foundation of achievement, of a life lived with intention and power, is not found in external circumstances or strokes of luck, but in the deliberate cultivation of those first moments after waking. We've seen how the chaos or clarity of our dawn directly mirrors the potential for triumph or tribulation throughout our day, and indeed, throughout our lives. This isn't a mere suggestion. It's a fundamental principle of personal dominion. The consistent thread weaving through our exploration is the undeniable power residing within the seemingly small decisions made before the world's clamor fully takes hold. It's in that moment of choosing presence over postponement, clarity over confusion, and purposeful action over passive reaction that we truly begin to command our destiny. This is not about achieving perfection from the outset, but about establishing a daily commitment to conscious evolution. The understanding that emerges is that this discipline, this intentionality applied to our mornings, is the bedrock upon which all other successes are built. It's the silent, unwavering force that allows us to navigate challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for growth, demonstrating an inner resilience that external forces cannot easily erode. What has been illuminated is that the mastery of one's morning is, in essence, the mastery of oneself. It's the profound act of reclaiming agency, of choosing to be the architect of one's experience rather than a mere passenger swept along by the currents of circumstance. This understanding is not a passive intellectual concept. It is a call to action, an invitation to integrate this newfound awareness into the very fabric of daily existence. The true practice begins now, not with the promise of overnight transformation, but with the quiet, steadfast commitment to showing up for yourself, moment by moment, breath by breath, beginning with the very first light of dawn. This is where the unwavering strength is forged, where the clarity is sharpened, and where the indelible mark of a life consciously and powerfully lived is made. Your capacity to shape your reality is not a distant dream, but a present possibility, waiting to be realized through the simple, yet profound, act of honoring your morning.